Bry's Comics. This channel is dedicated to comic book collecting, investing, and speculating. And in today's video, we're going to talk about the top 3 lessons that I've learned after grading thousands of comic books with CGC. I've been at this for quite some time now, long enough to be able to make a video like this with at least some kind of authority. But before we get too far into it, we have about 70 boxes left of the amazing, giant, incredible Bry box of mystery. Your chance at grand prizes like AF-15, X-Men #1, New Mutants 98, Giant Size X-Men #1, Incredible Hulk 181, and your chance at the rarest Marvel Ivan Tao variant to date, featuring stunning artwork of Miles Morales. All the details are live now over at bryscomics.com. So these are the top 3 things that I've learned after grading thousands and thousands of comic books. I mean, I literally have, dozens of videos on this channel about stuff that I've learned with CGC, but these are the top 3 things. And the number one thing that I learned pretty early on, but it did take a little bit of time to get comfortable with, is don't be blinded by desire. And what I mean by this is don't be so blinded by the desire that you have to get a certain grade for your book that you can't see the pile of crap, which is the book that's actually sitting in front of you that you're sending in to get graded. A lot of times we're very emotional about comic book collecting. It may be your childhood copy of one of your favorite books or something that you found at a Comic-Con or a garage sale that you're really hoping would get a certain grade so you can, flip it and make some money. Whatever the case is, learn to objectively evaluate comics. Take the emotion out of it so that you can know what to expect, and more importantly, if it's worth it or not to get that book graded. Because once you are able to evaluate comics accurately, you can look up the values ahead of time and answer the question for yourself, is it worth it to get this comic book graded? This doesn't really apply if you do just want to get one of your childhood copies graded or so that you can display it and you don't really care what grade it is. Obviously, this wouldn't apply to that. But if, the financial component is at all important to you, you need to be able to objectively evaluate comics and not be blinded by desire. Tip number 2 is don't be afraid to resubmit the comic book a second time or third time or fourth time. One time I submitted the same book 5 times before I got the grade that I knew it could possibly get. And the price difference absolutely made it worth it. It was Nova #1. I was going for a 9.8, and the first time I sent it in, it came back a 9.4, and then it came back a 9.6, and it came back a 9.4, then it came back a 9.6, and it was this one little defect that I was working on. Finally got that defect out. It was a non-color breaking defect. Got it out long enough for that book to get to CGC and get the 9.8. That book is really notorious for having overhangs, and it was just a little bend on the overhang. So that's an example of, resubmitting the book till you get the grade that you want. Now, this tip goes hand in hand with tip number 1, which is don't be blinded by desire. You can't polish a turd. If you try to polish a turd, you get crap all over your hands. So if you're objectively evaluating the comic and, there's no shot that it'll get a higher grade than, say a 9.2, then don't keep resubmitting it trying to get a 9.8. So, but the point here is that it's graded with a fresh set of eyes every time. And sometimes, when you're pressing and cleaning a comic book to try to get that grade bump, sometimes it takes multiple attempts to do so. So you may try different comic book pressers and cleaners. Maybe they'll have more success with a certain defect or something like that. And then, of course, there's always the factor that you could just get lucky one day and get a gift grade for a book. So there are situations where it does make sense to resubmit a comic. Make sure you crunch those numbers, and make sure it makes sense financially. But tip number 2 is don't be afraid to resubmit the comic. Tip number 3 is learn the grading standards of the company that you're going to submit the comics to. I'm assuming that you're going to submit the comics to CGC, and if that's the case, you absolutely need to pick up this book right here, the official CGC Guide to Grading Comics. I'm not affiliated with the book in any way. It's just an incredible resource that CGC sells on their website that explains all of their standards for grading. This book is like 300 pages. There's like over 100 pages dedicated just to specific types of defects. And if you're at all serious about grading comics, collecting comics, selling comics, you need to familiarize yourself with the grading standards of the company that you're going to use. So if you're going to submit to CBCS, you need to familiarize yourself with their grading standards. If you're going to submit to PGX, I don't know why you would do that, but you need to familiarize yourself with their grading standards. At this point, my only recommendation is to grade your comics with CGC. I keep seeing CBCS sales, and the gap between CBCS and CGC is growing. I wish that wasn't the case. I wish the gap was closing. CBCS just came out with new labels that a lot of people were saying was the big thing that held it up. I do not think that the new labels that they came out with are solving that problem, and I'm just seeing the gap continually grow between these two companies. It just is what it is. And sometimes I see a price difference of like 40 or 50% for the same book in a CBCS versus a CGC. And if you're at all concerned about the values of your books, you cannot take a 10 to 50% hit in the value of the book. So at this point in time, my recommendation is to stick with CGC. Another big factor for that is this book right here. Now that we know, we've waited decades to get this book. It took like 20 years after CGC was established to publish their standards. And now that we have it, it's even more of a reason to go with them, because now we can know what to expect. And this comes in handy when you're shopping for raw books. Maybe you're at a Comic-Con, or you're, on a live sale or something. And if you familiarize yourself with the defects, or just have access to the book. Say, for example, you see a book with a certain defect, and you look it up and you see, oh, that book cannot grade higher than an 8.5 with a 1-inch crease on the front cover. This book will tell you that. So without this book, you might say, how high can it grade with a 1-inch crease on the front cover? Well, grab this book and I believe it's an 8.5. So the other day, an example of this, I was on Whatnot, and this one seller put up a book and he goes, this book is near mint. It's minty, high. I mean, it was so annoying how he was pumping up this book as high grade and near mint. And then he shows the corner and he says, the only thing is this color breaking crease right here. Well, I know from this book and that specific crease, it can't grade higher than an 8.5. And he's over here saying it's high, near mint grade, except for the one defect. So the point is, if you familiarize yourself with this book, or at least have access to this book, take it with you when you're shopping for raw books, you will know how much the book is going to be worth if it's graded, and you'll be head and shoulders above the competition. You could save yourself a lot of money in buying raw books, because buying raw books and having them graded is a fantastic way to fund this hobby, but you can lose your ass because there's a lot of unscrupulous, dishonest comic book dealers in the world that want to try to sell you an overgraded book, or a restored book, or a qualified book. There's also a lot of really great sellers, but there's also a lot of douchebags out there. So you need to have the information yourself, which is why tip number 3 is familiarize yourself with the grading standards of whichever company it is that you're going to use. Hopefully it's CGC if you take my recommendation as of today. So that's it for this video. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like for your chance to win a free slab each and every month here on the YouTube channel. And we have a killer giveaway this month for the newsletter at brycecomics.com. We're giving away a Mark Jewelers copy of Star Wars 42, the first comic book appearance of Boba Fett. So make sure you get in on that by signing up for the newsletter over at the website. And we have about 70 boxes left as of filming this video of the amazing, giant, incredible Bride Box of Mystery. And follow me over on Whatnot. There's a link down in the description for $15 towards your first purchase. If you're new, I always have books in the Buy It Now for $15. So if you're new, you can stop by and pick up a free book. And follow me on Instagram for Trades for Grails. I posted 3 new Grails this week: a Fantastic Four #2 in super high grade, an AF-15, and an Amazing Spider-Man 129. Those books usually go really fast for trade over on Instagram. So if you're interested in consolidating your comics for a major Grail, I'd recommend having your list ready to go. So when you see that post, hit that notification bell on Instagram. All you have to do is send me your list, and I can crunch the values of those books at that time. It's a great way to, consolidate into a Grail. Thank you as always for sticking with me to the end of the video. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye. Welcome to Bry's Comics. Here on this channel, just like today, we're gonna cut that part out, Marcus. How do I want to start this? All right. No, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that. All right, so we're gonna start all over again. All right, here we go. Welcome to Bry's Comics. This channel is dedicated. Welcome to Bry's Comics.